Do you have a quick a Rafa story that you want to put out to people?
Yeah, I would say my favorite Rafa story. It's not so much a story about Rafa, but the first time I played him was the Cincinnati Masters Series. This was 2006. I was 18. Played him first round. I was in the locker room, and I was actually chatting with Andy Roddick, and Andy liked to kind of joke around a lot when he was playing. And I remember he said, "Hey, if you win a set, if you put your racket between your legs and do like the bowl dance all the way to the chair, I'll give you $500."
Come on.
And so I'm playing Rafa, and 18-year-old me, of course I'm not going to beat Rafa. But sure enough, I'm playing Rafa, and we're the first set, we're in a tiebreaker. And then all of a sudden I'm serving in a tiebreaker 6-5, and I start thinking in my head, like, oh, if I win this point, should I do the bowl dance and get $500 from Roddick? I end up winning the point, and I chickened out doing the bowl dance. I think about it every day since then for 15 years. But I remember that was the first time I played Rafa. I actually won the first set off him, then quickly lost the second, third set. But it was a really funny moment.
Oh, Sam, that's a great story. I can't believe you didn't do it. It's so unlike you. Come on, you're a guy that's had a horse head on his head. Come on.
It was like my third tournament I'd ever played. I didn't know what to do, and I was scared, but I wish I had done it.
You didn't want to go down like that. I have
exactly.
My one story about Rafa. I love him so much, but I lost in the 2009, I think it was, U.S. Open doubles semifinal. I was up a set, and it was like 2-2 in the second. We had to come back because it rained. So we had to come back the next day, and we ended up losing. And Rafa also lost that same day. And so, as you know, after you lose, you got to go into the bathroom and do the old pee test, right, for the drug test. And so I couldn't go, and I'd had a couple of beers, and, I was out of the tournament. It's the last Grand Slam of the year, and I was just chugging down beers with some friends. And then, and then all of a sudden I was getting a little wasted. I hadn't eaten anything. So I'd had like 2 beers, and I was already like, ah. Anyway, I see Rafa, he's doing like 65 interviews for TV after he lost. And then we got up at the same time to walk to transportation at the US Open. And I look over and I look at him, and I'm like, yo, Rafa, because, I've had a few, so I'm a little chatty. And I go, hey, Rafa, sorry about your loss. And I put my arm around him like this. I go, bad luck, man. And he goes, and he puts his arm around me, and he goes, see, for you too, no? And I was like, yes, I am also a loser today. It was just like,
he's the nicest guy.
It made me love him so much, because I'm like, wait, you took an interest in knowing that little old me, lost a doubles semifinal, and you actually knew I lost. And that to me told me so much about him as a person. I just love him so much.
And it's weird. You can have little moments like that in your life, and it'll make you a fan forever. The smallest little interaction with whoever in life, and you're a fan for a lifetime.
Yeah. I was like, did you guys see that? I was like drunk, like dribbling all over Rafa, and he's like, see, for you too, no? And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't had as many drinks as I have. But hopefully he did later on.
Just like adorable.
But also, just real quick on him, just an anecdote about him as a tennis player. Just real quick, the Australian Open that he won against Medvedev, I'll never forget this as long as I live. He was down 2-0. You were probably watching the match. Down 2-3, looking like he was down and out, dead gone. Take him to the knack, like put him out of his misery. He's down love 40 on his serve. He wins 1 point, and he pumps his fist, and he's like, vamos. And I was like, as a player, you and I would have thought, dude, you're done. Like, why are you getting so excited about like winning 1 point? You're still down love 40. I mean, he was fired up, Sam. And guess what? He wins the game, wins the set, comes back and wins the match. And you know what that tells me about him? That's what is Rafael Nadal in a nutshell. He never, ever gave up on 1 point in his entire career. And hopefully it's still not over, but that's what I will always remember about him as a player. Grit. Unbelievable.
And I think everyone that played him remembers him that way. If he played 10 million points, he tried hard for 10 million points.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say and you could probably say this too, there's plenty of points where you're receiving the opponent's up 5-2, 40 love, and like, I can miss a return in the second set. That is not in Rafa's DNA. No. And I've said this for a while, and I truly believe this. I think Nadal is maybe the greatest warrior or fighter in all of sports.
Yep.
Soccer, tennis, football, basketball. He's just incredible, the fighting spirit he has every second he's on the court.
Yeah, and I don't know if you ever practiced against him, but that's the one thing that I always tell people. If you want to see something, go watch Rafael Nadal practice, because you've never seen a more intense. He reminded me so much of Steffi. Steffi was the same way. From first point to last point, it was 100%. It wasn't 95. It was 100%. And that's why they played the way they did. the same way from the first point to the last point. And that, to me, he just is the greatest competitor I've ever seen. And he just never, and that Australian Open is the epitome of him, because there's no way he had any business winning that match. And he did. And even when he lost his serving for the match, you remember, and he said in the press conference afterwards, he said, I thought, I'm going to lose another Australian Open up a break in the 5th. He actually said this out loud, and he'd done it twice. He did it once against Novak and once against against Roger. The upper break in the 5th, he lost the match both times, and he remembered in the press conference, he said out loud, I thought I was going to do it again, but I said to myself, he threw the ball back, he double folded to lose the game, and he threw the ball back, and he gave a little bit of a nod of his head like this, and he said in the press conference, but you know what I said? I said, I'm going to try now for every point, and he has to beat me, and he ended up winning that match. He's just, if you could get in the head of a professional tennis player like that, knowing, you just think he's always positive, but no, he's not. He actually thought, I'm going to lose again. You would never think he would think that way, and he does, but he never gives up, and that's the difference.
No, and one more quick story. I remember, I'm going back maybe 2008, 2009. I only practiced with him one time, and it was at Miami. I remember my coach, David Nankin, at the time, set up a practice with Rafa for 2 hours, maybe the most miserable 2 hours of my tennis career. Sweating everywhere, just hitting the ball as hard as you can. I remember walking off the court looking at David saying, never book me a practice with Nadal again. That was absolute hell right there. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. My body is cramping. I probably went out and lost first round. It was just like overwhelmed after the practice for 2 hours.
Well, there you go. There's 2 or 3 or 4 great stories about Rafael Nadal, and why you and I respect, and I think he has the respect of 100% of the tennis players in the world.